Hello and welcome to a very special episode of High Intensity Truth with your host, Eric Ruth. I am that guy. I'm Eric Ruth. I'm a licensed attorney, and I'm going to put our guest today under oath to depose her to find out if she has overcome her trauma in healthy ways, and then she's going to do the same to me. Our guest today is Susanna Miller. She is, for full transparency, my wife. And we are going to depose Susanna today to see if she has overcome her trauma. And then, like I said, she's going to do the same to me. Susanna, how you doing, babe?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you someone's God?
I do.
Let's go. Who'd you come out of and where?
I came out of my mother in Kalamazoo, Michigan,
What year?
1982.
Was your dad around?
Yes.
Any other siblings?
I have a younger sibling. She's about 5 years younger than me.
What's your trauma?
My trauma, and I was thinking about this kind of all morning, knowing that I was going to have this conversation. My trauma is not what I would consider a heavy trauma, but it is something that impacts my relationships and how I move about the world and interact with other people. My trauma is that my mom growing up never really explained when she was upset with me or with the family or why she might be in a bad mood or anything like that. And it made me go into myself with the idea that everything was my fault. So I have this idea that I need to be a people pleaser to make people happy.
That leads me to the next question. How does your trauma manifest itself every day?
Yeah. So every day I am constantly trying to make sure that I'm not making anyone upset. And if someone's upset, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like when people are upset, even people I don't know, like out in public. When someone's upset, it's like a very uncomfortable feeling for me. But on a daily basis with my relationships and the people around me, if I feel like someone is upset or mad or in some way, I instantly take the blame, like it's my fault. And I apologize and for things maybe I don't need to apologize for. And I try to make things better, right? Like just try to fix them immediately.
So what are your triggers?
My triggers are when someone is in a bad mood or when they're angry about something, like verbally angry, or it's obvious in their body language that they're not happy about something. And I take the blame, put it on myself.
So what does it feel like when that happens?
It's a shitty feeling because I feel like I want to make things better. I want everyone to be happy. So, for instance, if it's, of course, full transparency because you're my husband, if there's something that is bothering you about work or whatever, I immediately take that on as like something I need to fix. So I try to make things happy. I'll play happy music. I'll try to make a joke. I'll try to overcompensate for things just to try to make the situation better in some way.
All right. When did you become aware of your trauma and how it was affecting your life?
I think that recently, in all honesty.
Recently, as in the last year, 5 years, 10 years?
Within the last 5 years. Within the last 5 years. It's really like our relationship that kind of brought to light the idea that for me that I am trying to overcompensate. Now, with past relationships, there was no communication about it. I'm sure I did it, but it was really with you and in our relationship and the communication that we have that kind of just brought out that I don't need to be doing these things and why am I doing these things? And so.
What work have you done to work on your trauma and how it affects your daily life?
Well, I've been to therapy and I journal. I try to have the emotional intelligence to step out of a situation sometimes and realize that this is not about me, but it's completely a work in progress. And I cannot say that I am fully over my trauma. Like, right. I haven't even spoken to my mom about this. Like, that's still a process for me to kind of get to the place where I have the right words and questions and, you know, to bring to her for us to have that conversation. And part of it scares me because one of the things that she would do was she would shut down and not want to talk about things. And so what does that look like? And so I haven't gotten there. So I don't think that I have overcome my trauma. I think it is a daily work in progress. And some days I think.
Are you able to function as a productive member of society today without your trauma affecting you in a way so negatively that it takes substantial chunks of time from your day?
Yes. But there are some days that I can't pull myself out of it. I can function in society. Can I function in my home sometimes? I have a hard time.
Explain that.
Because I feel like it's my safe space, right? So I have to do what I have to do in my job. I don't have time to worry about, trying to please people. But at home with my family, I want to make sure that we're living in this happy, joyous, loving environment. And if one of us is off in some way, I try to make that better, like overcompensate. And sometimes I cannot move past it. Like I cannot step back and have the intelligence to say, this is not what needs to be done right now. So that I think kind of hinders my personal life. But in society and my job and my profession, I think that I'm able to function just fine.
So what I'm hearing is that in one of your communities inside this family in your home, you have what you describe as an inability to function, but you're functioning, as I see it, correctly right now inside this community of our family. So it stops at some point, right?
Yeah, it's not all the time.
So how consuming is it? What's the kind of what I call the temporal consideration of your trauma and how it affects you when you say that you, I'm going to put words in your mouth, when you pull back from the family or when you need to take time for yourself? How long does that last today?
When I pull back from the family and I need to take time for myself, like to get back in, that it can take 15 to 30 minutes. And sometimes it's for me to come down from that, because for me, it's like an immediate reaction of wanting to try to make everything okay and be in that. So say something happens in our family unit and someone is upset, instead of me saying, I need to go and walk away and take a break and journal and meditate, I feel like I need to be there to make things better before I can go and walk away. But if I go and I walk away and I step away from it, it could take 15 to 30 minutes for me to regulate myself, calm down, and realize that, and our son could be perfectly fine and happy now, but I wasn't there.
Just for the record, how old is our son?
He's 5.
An emotional terrorist
He
age.
is learning to have emotions right now.
He is. Yeah, I can say that again. He is learning to have emotion. So you say it takes 15 to 20 to 30 minutes for you to, I would say, again, put words in your mouth, reintegrate back into the family at this point. What did that look like 6 years ago?
I would push those feelings down. That's one thing. I feel like I'm much more aware of my feelings now. Much more aware of what's happening. Doesn't mean it's easier for me to pull myself out of it, but I am more aware when I'm doing what I'm doing to try to make everybody happy.
What do you do to maintain your resilience today, with the caveat of your earlier statement that you yourself admit that you haven't overcome your trauma in a way that you would like to, but I would argue that you still have some level of resilience. So what do you do to maintain that resilience today?
I journal. I talk to you about this quite a bit. I think that having someone to talk to about and feel comfortable to have that safe space to say, I see where I was at it didn't feel good. I know what I should have done is really important, is to have that resilience, and then to have that person or that space to say, for them to come back and say, yeah, and you'll do better next time. Is really what continues to build that resilience. And then journaling about it and like writing it down. Like, for me to physically see in my journal, you could have done better. What can you do better next time? And for me to brainstorm ideas or whatever right there on paper is incredibly beneficial in building my resilience to this trauma that I have.
How do you feel about me showing this video to your mom?
Okay, because I know that we need to have a conversation, and I don't think that this has impacted my life in like a way that I'm in pain. And I know that would be something that would be hard for her to hear.
Not showing this video to your mom. I just want to know your feelings on it. Well, let me ask you this question, though. What would you say to her if, and I hope when you address this issue with her? What do you want to say to her?
I want to ask her why there were never conversations about, anger and frustration that happened in the house. I would want to know how she felt when I would do things like write her apology letters or make something for her to make her happy and smile, right? Like, did she have thoughts of, is she doing this to make me happy, or is she just doing this to be kind? And I don't know. We've never had those conversations. It was just kind of, go ahead.
What kind of a childhood did your mom have?
She grew up with 3 sisters in Pittsburgh, and my grandpa was in the Army, and he was very like gruff and militaristic, and I can very much imagine that there were not conversations about feelings in that household at all.
Do you have any blame for your mother?
No, I don't blame her. Just as a mom myself, I just hope that she can understand why that part felt like it was missing to me.
What kind of relationship do you have with your dad?
He was the fun one. That's interesting.
What's interesting?
He always wanted us to have fun. There was a lot of silliness and laughing and joy and music and just being kind of crazy and silly in our house. I love my dad. He was fantastic and fun, and I loved that about him.
He was. Your dad died in 2009 before I had a chance to meet him or know him. What was your relationship, what was your father's relationship like with your mother? What was their marriage like?
They were very, very loving towards each other. Like, they loved each other. But there were times when there are specific memories that I have as a child where they would get angry at each other and in front of us and have these fights and arguments, and no one ever checked in if that was.
Did follow up?
They would never talk to me or my sister about it.
Would you have family meetings about it?
We would have family meetings about things like vacations or like what was going to happen that week. It was never about, can we talk about what just happened or what you saw?
What was the toughest conversation you can remember having with either of your parents when you were a child?
I think the toughest conversation when I got my period was very embarrassing and difficult to tell my mom. And I've always felt like it shouldn't have been. The toughest conversation I have ever had with my mom was telling her that I was getting a divorce.
From me? I'm just kidding. You were divorced previously, right?
Yeah.
How old were you when you got divorced?
I was 20.
And how old were you when you got married?
I was 25.
Why do you feel like that was a tough conversation to have with your mother?
I felt like I disappointed her.
Do you think you did?
I think I disappointed her by marrying him in the first place. And maybe that was it. Because I knew she wasn't happy that I had married him. So to have to tell her that I had fucked up, that it wasn't a marriage that I should have been in.
How do you think you fucked up?
Well, that I had made the choice to marry him, I guess. Like maybe that I hadn't listened to her to begin with, right? That I had known her reservations, that I had known that that wasn't a decision she thought I should make, and I did it anyway.
What's your biggest regret in life?
My first marriage.
Okay. What's your second biggest regret?
My second biggest regret is moving back to Michigan.
Aw, you wouldn't have met me.
I know.
All right. What was your experience going through multiple miscarriages?
These are not pre-approved questions.
I sent you these earlier.
Okay, ask me the question again.
What was your experience going through multiple miscarriages?
That was very difficult because I had felt like my body was failing.
What was your experience like? So you went through one before our son was born, and then you went through one or two after our son was born?
Just one after he was born. So I've had two miscarriages.
In total. Okay. I'm confusing you with another woman. I apologize. What was your experience like the first time versus the second time?
The first time it was so sad because we were so excited because we were trying really hard.
And the second time, what was that like?
The second time was frustrating. That one held on a little bit longer, and it was just, I was still kind of feeling postpartum, even though our son was almost 2. Like I was still in a spot where I was like, is this the best, for me and everything? But once it was like 10 weeks in, right? I felt a little bit more of a connection, and then it was like taken away. And because it was so late, I had to have an abortion. And that was really not only physically painful, but very emotionally and mentally painful.
Was the pain that you experienced the second time equal to the first time?
Emotionally, it was not as much as the first time. I felt so devastated the first time just because we were both so excited. We were excited the second time too, but like we were both it was our first and we were excited. And
so what was different the second time?
The second time I already had a son. I had a baby, right? And that was taking up a lot of my headspace. I was excited to have a bigger family, to have another one of us, but I had a child I had to take care of. I had to be there for him. Like I couldn't wallow in my own pity the same way I could the first time.
What is your trauma doing to your child currently?
He thinks things are his fault a lot.
You think that's your fault?
I don't know.
Do you think that your trauma is still prevalent in a way that you're concerned that it might be affecting him?
I think when I hear him apologize for things, or he says something like, it's my fault, I wonder if he's seen me do the same thing. Like I try really hard. I know we have we don't say sorry in our house. So I've really tried to shift my language, but I know for years and years and years, I did it all the time. I apologized. So I'm sure it slips out.
What do you mean we don't? What do you mean we don't apologize in our house?
We don't say sorry for things that we apologize to ourselves, right? Like, if something happens, we're not apologizing to the other person. We're apologizing to the fact that we did not live up to our own expectations, right? So if I say I'm going to get home, I'm going to empty the dishwasher and I'm going to clean the kitchen, and something happens and I don't do it, right? Or I get distracted or I spend some time on my phone or something like that, and then you do it. What I want to do is I want to apologize to you, but I shouldn't be apologizing to you. What I should be saying is, Susanna, you didn't meet the expectation you set for yourself. And now your husband has to pick up the slack. And that's why, like, there's no reason for us, like, and, I didn't harm you. I just made it inconvenient for you.
To be clear, do you use this strategy outside your house? Do you say sorry to nobody ever?
I say sorry to people.
I want to make sure people understand the context. We're not walking around not saying sorry, but it's a practice that we've implemented directly to help you overcome your issues with wanting to apologize.
Yes.
Okay. What is the worst thing that I cook or make you eat?
Oh my gosh. So this question, I had to think about it a lot. So the worst thing, and there were like two that I came up with. The worst thing is when you just eat tuna out of a can. I just cannot.
I'm not making you eat it.
It's so gross. I put it in a bowl first.
Okay.
And then the other thing is your chili has way too much meat in it. No one needs that much meat.
Objection. Chili needs all the meat. All right, fair enough. What is the best thing about me as a partner?
Best thing about you as a partner is that you are not complacent with the status quo. Like you are constantly trying to better yourself and better our relationship. And you are well aware when we are, the lights in my room just went off. You are well aware when we need to reconnect or we need to focus on us. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case. It has never been the case in any of my other relationships. And so your need for communication and need for us to be honest with each other on a consistent basis is probably the best thing about you because you're always trying to make us as a couple better and you as a person better and our partnership better and our family better. And I think that is the best.
Fair enough. Did I look better with hair? You're under oath.
I did like you with hair, even though it was thinning.
What's the worst thing about being my partner?
When you are disappointed with yourself or your expectations, you take it out on me.
How do I take it out on you?
You can become frustrated and you might say things like, you never want to make friends or you never do this or, and I'm like, that seems, here's an example. And this is one thing that we've talked a lot about lately where you're like, we need a schedule. We need a schedule. We need a schedule in our life. Right. And I'm like, no, I have a schedule. My day is very scheduled. Like it's you saying to yourself, I need a schedule and I need you to help me hold myself accountable to that schedule. But you put that on me. Like we, like as a family need a schedule when in reality, it's you that needs that schedule and we just need to help you adhere to it.
It's the projection of my own frustration with myself that I take it out on you guys, certainly. Well, that is all the questions I have for you, Susanna Mary Miller. I will go ahead and read the verdict now based on your own words that you haven't overcome your trauma. I think you have. I think you do a great job of being a functional human being. I think watching you step out of scenes and collecting your thoughts and, doing things like breath work and meditation and journaling and trying to be mindful, I think light and day compared to when I first met you. So good job. But the record's clear. You got some work to do, right?
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll turn it over to you now.
Okay.
It's your show. Go ahead.
It's my show. All
Go
right.
ahead.
So, Eric Ruth, I'm going to do this in the best love.
Hold on. You are not a licensed attorney, so don't try to practice law without a license there, Miller.
I'm a licensed educator, and I do, on a regular basis, interrogate my kids about things. So,
all right, let's have it.
Okay. Where did you grow up? Who did you come out of, and where did you grow up?
Connie Ruth, Anaheim West General Hospital, April 30th, 1981. And I grew up around Anaheim, California.
And what was your trauma?
Child abuse, neglect, abandonment, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse.
And how does your trauma manifest for you?
Rumination. I can't stop thinking about it. And then I get triggered. I diagnosed myself as a kind of a first nature hedonist. My happiness is joy. Well, not joy, but fun. I need scenes to be happy and light. And so I always try to search those out. And if I'm in focused work, if I'm doing anything that takes any level of energy, really, and I see something that appears to be a distraction that would be fun, I jump for it. It's my automatic first nature to go, I'd rather be doing that. That's fun. That's my happiness. So I'll answer your next question is how does it manifest in my life? It's my triggers are images of women. My mom growing up was a prostitute. So I feel like we're telling you this, story. So my mom was a prostitute and I was around sex a lot growing up, and sex and drugs and drinking became what my mind sees as fun and the right thing to do for entertainment. So anytime my mind sees an image of a woman that I think is attractive, I go into this rumination like spiral of that's what I want. I want to be with that woman. I want that woman. Or if it's somebody drinking, I want to go and drink with them. Or if they're smoking a joint, I want to go and do that. I want to do anything other than the activity I'm doing. And so that's what it is. And then it manifests itself now in just rumination. I just think about it. I'm like, I want that. I want that. I want that. I don't go for it anymore, but that's what I do.
When did you become aware of your trauma affecting your life?
I was always aware of it. I knew that I didn't have the same upbringing as everybody else. When I was 5, I lived across the street from Disneyland in a motel, and I would sneak into Disneyland all the time. And walking around that atmosphere and that environment with people that were civilized, that were put together, I recognized I wasn't civilized. I was different. And it wasn't a recognition of trauma at that point, but I recognized something was different about me. And I became that identity, like that you live that uncivilized kind of mindset. And then it honestly wasn't until I was in my mid-30s when I realized that how my trauma had affected me. And it was when I tried to kill myself when I was in law school.
And what work have you done to overcome your trauma?
Therapy, a deep study into philosophy, and now journaling. I've also had conversations with probably, honestly, the most beneficial thing to me was conversations with my mom and having a realization that it wasn't her fault and it wasn't my fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just the simple, natural occurrence and kind of coming together of people and times and situations that there's no way that she couldn't have been the person that she was. There's no way that I couldn't have been the person that I turned out to be based on what I saw and what I was subjected to. So having this conversation with my mom and realizing that, there's nothing malicious here. It's not like she had an evil intent to be this person. It's not like she had a husband that's my sister's father that just beat the shit out of me every time I was with him. And I blamed him for a lot. I was very angry as a kid. And it all stemmed from that relationship with that man because I was so scared of him and hated him so much. And it was in my 30s that I thought, it's not his fault. Like, look at how he grew up and where he came from. And that kind of awareness was like, okay, now you recognize all the evils that you're helping perpetuate through this. What can you do to stop it? And then the work really began. So for me, I did a deep dive into philosophy and stoicism. That's what kind of shed the light on the ownership I needed to take in my life and showed me the path forward, that happiness is unselfish activity. And what you're doing and trying to protect your own happiness, it looks like narcissism to everybody else because you're so selfish. And from my point of view, I was being a good person. I was trying to preserve my happiness and trying to get myself to what I thought was a baseline so I can give my efforts to others. Again, when I was 35 and went through stoicism, I finally saw that how every activity that I had undertaken until that point had been motivated by a selfish intent to preserve my own happiness. Everything, even if you could talk to somebody who's like, oh, Eric's a good guy, it was going to be a facade of what the actual intent behind it was. And I knew I was lying to myself and everybody else.
Do you find that it's difficult on a daily basis to kind of combat those triggers that you have? Like, I'm sure that they're still there. You still have them, but do you find that it can be really difficult for you on a daily basis to kind of stay that steady path?
Yeah, it's a minute by minute thing for somebody that deals with the deep, seated issues like that. When I say difficult now, like my day-to-day, minute-by-minute activity, it's become a practice. So it's like I'm standing on top of scars that I know they're there, that I'm okay. And my first nature has definitely transformed into a nature now that is not as selfish. Still very selfish. I'll be the first to admit that. When I walk into a room, if I don't think about it, I look at everybody in that room and go, hey, how can I exploit you? What can you do for me? And I have to stop before I walk into scenes and talk to myself and say, hey, make sure you're looking at these people and being empathetic to their position, how you can help them. What value can you bring to this relationship from your side versus what they're going to bring to you? And it's journaling that keeps me in line with that. And the days that I don't journal, it comes through. That first nature shows up.
What is your biggest distraction right now? So talking about the idea that you have to combat those triggers on a daily basis. Like, what's the biggest distraction that you have?
My phone.
Your phone.
My phone. I look for things that are easy ways out for the task that I'm in. If I'm in what I call a second level thinking, a deep level thinking that past that intuitive level where you really need to get into it, the moment it's like, you see a squirrel or something shiny, the moment I catch visual sight of something that appears to be an option for a distraction, my mind runs for it. I said, go there, go there, go there. So to combat that, I isolate myself. I remove as many distractions as possible. I'll put my phone in another room. I'll keep it in my car. I'll hand it to you. I've given you my phone before. I recognize that it's this cell phone, especially these smartphones. This isn't a flip phone, right? This is a time machine. If I don't like the scene I'm in, I can get up and go somewhere else. I can talk to a friend on the other side of the world. I can literally look at the view of Bali right now if I wanted to, So I realize that it doesn't change. I've been in this life for 43 years and in this landscape with this damn phone for, I don't know, how long has the iPhone been around? 17 years? In 17 years that I've been around these things, it doesn't change. I know that this is my automatic response to this type of distraction. So I have to stay on top of it and say, I'm not going to be a slave to this thing. I'm going to make it useful to me. So it becomes, again, hiding it. That's it. Because I know that my body is going to lie to me every time I see the damn thing and want to pick it up. Other than that, I will say that my other distractions and triggers in life, again, are what I deem to be attractive women. Anytime that I see somebody that I think is beautiful, my mind, again, does the same thing where it goes to those thoughts of, I want to be with that person, think about this, think about that. So what I've done in that realm is I go to what I call tactical empathy, and I automatically try to look at the person from a different perspective. And now as a parent, it's pretty easy, honestly. I look at every single woman I've ever seen, and I have that thought about, and I go, they're a daughter, they're a wife, they're not an object for you to find pleasure in. They're a human being that is trying to support their tribe and their family and their own causes, see them in that way. And it's a lot easier, honestly, because I sometimes have that first thought of, oh, they're really attractive, look at that body part or whatever. And then I very quickly now go to, what do you think they're doing? What are they doing with their mind? What are they doing in their lives? Who are they supporting? What good are they bringing? That, honestly, what it does is it help set up the next conversation, because I'm not asking questions of, the passive kind of, what's the weather like? It's like, what are you doing? What can I help facilitate for you? What can my skill set bring to whatever problems you're trying to solve, rather than making my thoughts in the conversation about them specifically? I make it about a bigger purpose.
So none of this is like a surprise to me, right? Like something that we've talked about.
We would have some issues if this was like, oh, wait, that's how you do it?
No, we've had lots and lots of conversations about this. And I'm well aware of that this is a trigger for you and that this is something that can be a distraction for you. And you work from home. So there's this whole different aspect. And I know that there are times you're like, I can't work from home anymore. I have to get out. And so getting out sometimes can lead to those distractions for you. Do you find yourself easier? Is it easier to work from home with the distraction of your phone? Or is it easier to work out with the distraction of the potential distraction of other people?
It's much easier for me to work outside the home. When I don't, I'm a child. I'm a giant piece of shit that needs supervision. When I don't have something supervising me, I fall back into that first nature, and I'll look at my phone. And sex and porn and things like that, it's not the addiction that I had at all. But when I'm triggered, I need to remove myself from scenes. So now when I'm triggered at home, I go for walks. I go outside. Which, I'll be honest, sucks a lot because I'm in Michigan. So right now, it's actually a decent day today. It's not bad, but it gets down to 5 degrees. And when we still had our dog, like, I'll say, oh, I'll take the dog for a walk. And sometimes, she didn't even want to go outside. So I'm sitting there walking by myself in freezing cold, but that's what I have to do. And it sucks because it's, when I'm here alone, those chunks of time we talked about earlier, substantial chunks of time that are taken, and it would be half an hour sometimes. I'm like, I gotta clear my head. This isn't, this trigger isn't gone. I haven't subdued my emotions enough to get back into a level of baseline. But when I'm out and I have people around me, I know that you can't look at your phone. Like, I look at it like they're watching me work, and maybe they're impressed that I'm in a coffee shop or a bar, or I'm somewhere out in public where I'm working. So I stay focused. It's like a little life hack that I've been able to implement in my life, that I know that if I have an audience around me, it's probably my selfish ego again talking, but I think they're looking at me. And if they're looking at me, I don't want to be a disappointment to them, and I want to keep working.
Yeah. So my next question was, when do you spiral the most? But you kind of have already answered that.
I spiral the most Well, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I spiral the most when I don't have something to do, when I don't make plans, when I'm left to my own devices, when I don't have somebody saying, this is what you're supposed to be doing right now. And I've learned in the past that external validation was never good because I'd make justifications and excuses why I could upset that routine. But when I make plans myself, when I'm sober and I have my task lists and set up and I know what I'm supposed to be doing, it's not an issue. So making sure my calendar is absolutely inundated with meetings and things that I'm supposed to do. I don't, like you said, I don't have time to fuck around.
Yeah, there are days when sometimes I look at your calendar and I'm like, oh, there's a lot of empty space there today. What's going to happen? Is that one of those things we like check in with each other?
That's one of the days where I say I'm going out, right? I'm going to a coffee shop. I'm going because I work from home and it's hard. I don't have a support staff. I don't have an assistant in my practice or anything to do. So it's personal accountability of the highest order. And I have to make sure that I'm staying on top of it by putting myself in environments that allow me to be the best version of myself. Sometimes that's at home. You can say I got the 2 screens. So that always helps with taking that laptop to a coffee shop is from a resource efficiency standpoint, it sucks a lot, but I know that I got to get the work done. So I got to put myself in that environment.
Yeah. All right. So what do you think is, do you feel like that I help support you in those realms, like during your day, the best I can from, my own?
You are a fucking superhero when it comes to supporting me. And that's why you're my wife. That's why I chose you, because you're the type of person to say, I'm going to make sure that you succeed in this realm. And you give me so much time and space. And honestly, you give me a long leash to fuck up. And then you reel it in nice and easy and give me a nice safe space to show up and say, hey, I screwed up. And whether you realize it or not, you kind of got like a tough love mentality about you where you're like, okay, come tell me what you did. And the advice you give is your silent disapproval, which you don't need to say anything. I already know what I need to do to fix things. But yeah, you're the most supportive partner I've ever had. Your empathy is off the charts.
What's the best part about being married? Now, you've been married before. You've been married twice before.
You're my third, my lucky third. The best part of about being married in general is having a partner. I may be wrong about this in the grand scheme of things, but I think that every human being is better off with a partner, be it a romantic partner, be it a best friend, be it somebody that they can know unequivocally is going to be there for them. And having that, ultimate sense of loyalty with somebody, whether it's, facade or not, it's an amazing compliment to life, and it makes life so much better. Being married to you specifically, the best thing about being married to you is your passion for life, your fervor for enjoying it and getting the most out of it, really probably from your trauma, but no matter the circumstance, you kind of had this first nature of, damn the torpedoes, we're going to enjoy this moment. And that's something I need a lot, because if I have a partner that is, ruminating and spiraling themselves, I'll join in. And then we become a tag team of depression. And you're an anchor and a baseline that I certainly need in my life, or at least I feel like I need in my life.
Sometimes we can spiral together, and we have to quickly get ourselves out of that.
It's always about our son, though. It's always about it. We come out of it pretty quickly.
But what is the worst part about being married?
Expectations. And that's my own personal hell, is I live in a world of expectations where I go, I want this to happen. I think this should happen. This person should act this way today. And I've always had a problem fitting women into boxes. I've always said this is the type of partner that I want and need. So I'm going to talk to you and communicate with you in a way that puts you there until you either bend or break. And it's like, it's my own shit. I have my own issues with those expectations. So when you're that close with somebody and you're so intimately, intertwined with somebody's life, you start to get into routines of, we don't need to communicate as much, right? We fall into, I can just look at you and expect this to happen. And through my study of philosophy and stoicism, it reminds me that expression is all we have, right? The impression that you give other people, and those expressions that you use, they have to be often and they have to be clear. And that's what dispels expectations for me, is having that communication, knowing that we're on the same page. And a lot of times I don't follow through with that communication to know exactly what you're thinking. And then I interject my own logic into it. And as we know, my logic is balls crazy. So it ruins those expectations. So taking away those would be magical, but I'm still learning to work with them.
Would you get married again? To me?
Oh, like if I had another choice? If it was you today, yeah. I'd marry you today. If it's me sitting here today and you 8 years ago, no, I wouldn't. You know, we've talked about this a lot, but coming into this relationship at the time that I was at, I was so desperate for anybody to come into my life, and you fit the bill for that season and then kind of stuck around, but we never had any real conversations about the type of partner that I felt I needed going forward and what I needed to do. But we've evolved, right? And I'm so happy that we have, and we've evolved together. So it's a fun hypothetical to think about. But of course I wouldn't choose you again. You're not the same person you were, but who you are today, fuck yeah.
Thanks, babe. Um, how much do you lie on average every day? Because I know one of the things that you really struggle with is lying. So
Yeah,
average
so
every day. What?
admitted pathological liar. All right. It's in my first nature to lie again to protect my happiness at all costs. And I'll throw anybody under the bus. Saw something recently that the average male lies 9 times a day. I would put my lying at probably treble that. It's like you, I have a people pleasing thing that I want people to be impressed by me. And I don't want to ruffle feathers needlessly. I love fighting and I love going up against bullies and people that I think are wrong, but I can't stand when people think that I've done something wrong or I'm not impressive or I'm not the best version of me. So anytime that I fail, I lie to myself. The first person I'll lie to is justify that to myself and say, it's okay that you did that. Here's an excuse, and I'll serve it up to myself. And that happens every minute of every day. Anytime that I don't want to do something, I will my mind will create an excuse. Like I said, it'll serve it up on a platter going, here, spit this out to them and you won't have to do this thing. Oh, you don't want to drive to go to that meeting? Go tell somebody your grandma died and you'll get out of it. Use whatever combinations of words you need that they're going to say, oh gosh, I feel sorry for you. Please don't show up for this. And I have to deal with that lie in my head all the time. And I'm very proud to say that lie very, very rarely actually gets to my mouth. And when it does, it's the most devastating thing to me now because of all the work that I've done. But again, you provide that safe space to me. So we have a process now that every time it does get to my lips, I come to you. I say I failed. And we kind of go through an analysis of whether I need to go back and tell the person. There are sometimes in professional relationships, there are little white lies that don't matter at all. But I feel the need to tell you, hey, I lied to this person. And then, I talk, say, do I need to go back and tell them the truth? And sometimes I do. And I go back and say, hey, I need to tell you the truth about this. This is going to harm my reputation and let you understand that this is who I am. But if I lie to you, I'm going to come back to you. Understand that. And that's the reputation I hold now is and it's always in my personal sphere. Professionally, I've never had an issue lying, knowing that this is my livelihood. You lie there, you're going to be screwed. I'm a lawyer. It took a lot to get here. It took a lot in character and fitness. If you lie at all in this, you're done. And it's always somebody else's happiness. So I'm not lying about that. When I lie, it's always protecting my own reputation, and it's always in those personal spheres. But sometimes they do slip out in the professional realms and networking, things like that. So I'll go back to them. And that is the biggest deterrent for me because nobody wants to, as a 43-year-old man, show up to another human being like, hey, Chris, so I told you a lie yesterday, and it's embarrassing as shit. And I've done it before, and I don't want to do it again. So I don't get to that point, honestly. So I can tell you, I lie a shit ton in my head and very, very, very rarely outside of it. But when I do, I rectify it immediately.
What's the biggest lie that you have told yourself, in your life?
That I'm special. That I'm special. That my ego. And you tell me all the time you do a good job of reminding me that my ego is going crazy again. My ego wants me to believe that I am God. To be honest, I was hospitalized at one point because I had a delusion that I was God. That's how big my ego got, right? I think I'm special. I think I'm better than you. I think that I've seen things that just make me a better person. And that is it was damn near the death of me.
That's heavy. That has to be something that you are consistently working on a daily basis. Is that ego. And it is something that I bring up to you. I'm like, is that your ego?
It's always my ego. It's always my ego. Every single time it's my fucking ego. And that's the battle I'll be in the rest of my life. And it is for somebody like me, I really believe that that is the battle of my life. That is really the battle that I have to sustain life for me, because I can recognize that if my ego is going to get out of control like it did, that's what's going to kill me. I'm going to kill my own self because I'm not going to be able to handle, probably at the end of the day, the devastation of realizing the truth of the situation and realizing that I'm not as great as I thought, that I'm not any more special than anybody else, that if you're going to enjoy life at its fullest, you have to fucking work hard. You just can't show up and expect the world to hand you stuff. And because of what I went through and how I thought for so long, I've always thought the world owes me something. The world owes me happiness. So it's just going to be brought to me on a silver platter. And that's why I'm special. And you and Stoicism and therapy has shown me that I am a human, period. That's it. No better, no worse. But inside that humanity is an opportunity for happiness unlike any other, if you choose to stay on top of it and choose it, or choose to take hold of it and do something with it rather than being passive and letting your trauma dictate the day for you.
What was it like for you when you and I first met and I seemed kind of unimpressed by the things that you were telling me?
Cool. It felt cool. It felt nice to be in a conversation where I wasn't trying to one up somebody. A lot of people in conversations where they hear something that impresses somebody, they want us to come back with their own impressive information. And with you, I would say something that I would think would impress you and you wouldn't respond. Like you would just go on with the story. So you maintained a conversation level that was not about impressing each other with what we've done or achievements. It was just trying to get to know each other. I never tried to impress you on purpose because I knew it wasn't going to work. You were going to be impressed with connection, with being heard. And that was one thing I really understood quickly about you, that the moment you feel like you're not being heard, you turn off, you go away. You're not attracted to that person. So I knew that I needed to be like super, listening and into the conversation rather than talking about myself all the time.
I have a very important question for you right now.
What's for dinner?
Where's our rhinoceros?
I saw it and I hid it. Just so people know what we're talking about, we have this I hid it in the bedroom, little white rhinoceros that we hide everywhere that says I love you on it. And Miss Miller today hid it right here in front of my fuck you dollar before this podcast. So before the podcast, I hid it somewhere in the bedroom for you to find. But seriously, what is for dinner? Probably tacos. All right. So have I overcome my trauma? What's the verdict?
I think that you have overcome your trauma, but it is still a consistent daily battle for you. Like you have done the work, you have worked incredibly hard, and you're very introspective about the things that are triggering you in your life and the ways that you're failing, because it still happens. And so I think that while you have overcome your trauma and you have trauma, that it is consistently a daily battle for you to keep moving forward.
It's fun though.
It's fun.
It is. It's fun. I really do. I do enjoy it because if you can't find some sort of enjoyment in something, and look, when I say fun, I mean enjoyment, right? I really do enjoy the process of understanding myself and understanding what trauma can do to a person in their day and relationships. And my God, the key is self-awareness, right? It's the key is self-awareness, but then the real work is getting in there and having those conversations with yourself and being honest. And honestly, that honesty, I can't do that to the English language. That honesty is something that I look forward to on a daily basis with everybody, including myself. And yeah, it's fun. I love having honest conversation with people because it cuts through the crap. I don't want to hear about the weather. I don't want to hear about what's going on with your kid in soccer. I want to hear about your trigger and how you dealt with it, right? I want to hear about what your life looked like when it got ugly, not pretty. So yeah, I think it's fun.
The man I met 8 years ago is a completely different person than they are today. And that, to me, that growth and change is incredibly impressive.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I don't have anything else for you.
Okay, I've got kids coming in.
All right. I know you're at school. I'm about to get some work done myself. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me and be subjected to this show and doing the same for me. All right. I'll see you when you get home tonight.
Okay.
All right. That's been it. This is the Hit Show with Eric Ruth. And I want to thank my wife, Susanna Miller, for joining us and talking about her trauma and being vulnerable. And of course, if you have a story about your trauma and you want to discuss it and how you have or haven't gotten over it, come talk to me. You can find me at thehonestyexperiment.com or thegoodly25@gmail.com. Thanks. Have a good one.